Hello everyone, I'm Marc Desgroseilliers from Technical Support here at Pix4D, and today we're going to talk about merging. Now, there's this functionality in Pix4Dmapper called merging, which will allow you to take several projects and, well, merge them into a single project. So this has many advantages. For example, it's going to allow you to produce one large orthomosaic instead of having several disjointed orthomosaic that you would have to stitch in some other software. You can have just one large orthomosaic. So that's sometimes very convenient. And what will happen is that you're going to create individual projects, merge them together into a single project, and then you will keep going with further steps of processing. But in this video, I'm going to explain to you how to do this. So, in which cases would you like to use this feature? Well, the first use case is when you have several types of imagery. So, for example, you flew with your drone and you have nadir imagery, and because you did a grid flight, and then afterwards there was a building in your scene, and you were interested in having more resolution, like more details of this building. So then you did a circular flight around this building. Now, the different parts of the building are going to look very different from the nadir perspective and from the oblique perspective. And so that's why, in this case, it's important to create two different projects, one with the nadir images, one with the oblique images, and then once these projects have been processed for step one, you can then merge these projects together, and then the different type of imagery is going to be processed correctly. Another use case for this merge feature is when you have very large projects. So if you need to do many flights, then it's often a good idea to do one sub-project per flight and to merge these sub-projects. Now, I just said this, but one thing to keep in mind is that it's kind of easier and it requires less work to not merge the projects and put all of the images into one project and just let the mapper do the reconstruction as usual. This will work well if the two different flights were done one after the other, and the imagery looks very similar and there's a good overlap between the two flights. However, if some of the factors changes, so for example the time of day, you did one flight in the morning, one flight in the afternoon, and now the shadows changed, then this putting all the images into one project might not work, and in this case we recommend doing one project per flight and then merging. Another case where the merging feature might not be the right tool is if, when you do the sub-project, some of these sub-projects would be too small. So, for example, you just have 10 images, and then that would create a really small project. So, in this case, what we would recommend is to take enough images to create this small sub-project so that it can calibrate on its own. But if it can't, then you can add these images to some other project directly without merging. Good. So let's move on and let's go into the procedure. How does it actually work? How does the merging work? So what you will do, and let me say that we have project A and project B. And what you're going to do is you're going to process the first step in each project. So let's say that project A has nadir images and project B has oblique images. So now you process step one in each project individually. And one thing to note is that there's no point processing steps 2 and 3 because you need to do the merging of the project beforehand. So you just need to process step 1. This way you will save some processing time. And now in each project you will add manual type points so that have the same name and point to the same feature. Once you've added 5 or 6 of these MTPs, then you can re-optimize the individual projects And this will make sure that the mapper takes into account these different MTPs, and then you can merge. So let's see what this looks like. You see here, I have two images, and I have this white truck, and I'm going to add an MTP which I call truck corner, and you see that the truck corner doesn't look the same in both images, but I know, right, because I shot the imagery, I know that this is the same point. So I create an MTP there, and I give it the same name in project A and project B, and that's how you would need to proceed. Then once this has been done, the projects have been re-optimized, I can create a new project, which is going to be the merged project. And in the project creation window, there's going to be an option which is called the project merge from existing projects. So that's what you'll want to select. You select you find the different P4D files that were created previously, click finish, and now the mapper is going to put the different projects together. If necessary, you can re-optimize to make sure that all the camera positions are correct. And that's it. You've got your merged project. So let's see what it looks like in the mapper. Let's see first the nadir project. So you can see here you have the nadir imagery and a few more oblique shots, but they were all well calibrated inside the project. So this project is called nadir. I'm going to find the truck, and I'm going to see the images here associated to the truck corner. So I'm going to find some images where I can clearly see the truck, and I'm going to add an MTP. So I call it truck corner. And here, I'm going to use this feature here. Now that I clicked on two images, there is a reprojection. I can click it on a few more images, give a bit more information to the mapper. And apply. So now I can inspect the images, and I can make sure that my MTP has been correctly placed on all the images. So far it looks very good. Excellent. So now I can go in the oblique project. You see here, this is the oblique project that was taken from much lower, much closer to the structure. I can find, let me remove the cameras. I can find the same truck corner. And I'm going to add an MTP. I call it truck corner. And I click it on a few images. Here you go. Click apply. So far, reprojection looks good. Excellent. So I click apply. And now, as you can see in the project, there are other MTPs that had been added previously. So now I added a new one. Now I have 5 MTPs, which should be sufficient to merge the project. To make sure that the mapper takes into account these MTPs, I would need to re-optimize the project. So I would need to re-optimize both the oblique project and the nadir project once all the MTPs have been added. Now for this demonstration, I will not click re-optimize, but in your project you would need to do it. So now, once re-optimize has been done, I can create a new project. And I can call it merged project, and project merge from existing projects. So now I can go in my file structure and find the P4D files of the different projects. So here's one, and the other P4D file. Click Next. Here it tells me that it cannot find some of the imagery, so I go back, tell it where I stored the images. There you go. Okay, now question, some projects have type points with the same labels. Do you want to treat them as identical? And the answer is yes, because now the mapper is going to take the different type points. So for example, truck corner in the nadir and the oblique project, and it's going to treat them as the same, and it's going to help it with the merging. So I certainly want to say yes. Some projects have objects with the same name and type. Again, yes. Merge projects have different parameters for initial processing. Now, this it's warning me, but this is not worrisome because one project was oblique, one object was nadir, so it's normal to have different processing options. Still, it's going to warn me. And same thing for the third step. So just something to keep in mind, but we can still proceed. Now I click Finish, and it's going to start immediately merging the two projects. Now I already did the processing to be able to show you. Here we can see the cameras, and as you see, here we have the nadir project, and at the bottom the oblique imagery, and all the images have been placed correctly. So now, once this has been done, I can re-optimize the project, and I can move on to processing the second and third step to get the outputs for the whole merged project here in this merged project.